What's up, everybody? Welcome to, I'm just kidding, it's not the podcast. We are here for the Patient and Caregiver Rights Panel. My name is Eric Yoshikawa, one half of Everyone Knows You're High.
My name is Kale, the girl guru Hawaii, the other half of Everyone Knows You're High. Happy to be here, happy to serve the public, and happy to get these questions answered, man. So let's start it off. If you guys could kindly introduce yourselves as we go down the road. Sister over here to my left, introduce yourself, please.
All right. Talofa lava. My name is Fuimaono-Poe. I'm a family nurse practitioner and a patient advocate.
Aloha. I'm Daniel Anthony. I'm a subsistence closed-loop farmer, patient, and caregiver.
Hello, my name is Jason Matthys. I'm a cannabis seed maker and cannabis activist.
Aloha, my name is Rusty Tapp, and I'm a Hawaiian farmer, agriculturalist, and cannabis patient and caregiver, hemp producer as well.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Coco Iwamoto. I'm the co-founder of the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce, and we are all small business owners who believe in striving for a triple bottom line, which is people, planet, and prosperity. We believe we can strengthen our economy without hurting workers, consumers, communities, or the environment.
Beautiful, very nice. Well, thank you again to the Hawaii Cannabis Expo for having us and having this panel here. We're going to just get into the questions, I suppose, because you guys all want to hear them talk.
I'll kick it off. Yeah, okay. Super simple question on the first one for everyone that wants to chime in. Why do we need to protect, preserve, and improve the existing medical patient caregiver program, even if the state legalizes recreational cannabis?
So, do you want me to start on that one? Okay, I'll kick it off. What we have seen in other places is that when we get adult use, it tends to wipe out the medical, mainly the farmers who grow medical cannabis and the caregivers. And one of the reasons why it's so important is because this level of access that is really for medicine is completely different than having it in a commercial strain. So having some form of cannabis agriculture that's not directly connected to commerce, that's really for compassionate use, is so incredibly important to preserve and to preserve the right to grow.
I'd just like to add that, we're in the state of Hawaii. So I don't know how many years it has been since we've had a super shitty medical program. But we all know that the state in their recreational program is probably going to take 20 years to figure it out. Mm-hmm. What do the medical patients and the communities that really need this do in the interim? So this is, I think, also important for consistency, quality, and access to those that have no money.
I came out here from California, so I think May touched on this a little bit, and it's something that I lived through over the last 10 years, where we had a thriving medical cannabis program that was essentially deleted by the legislature, and that absolutely changed how people were able to access medicine, and that is something that we as a community here should really think about and look at examples like California and figure out how we can make sure we preserve the model in its form here.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for the question. I would add that, like Jason's saying, it's well documented now that many states approach adult use cannabis and neglect the medical patient community. When I speak about medical patient community, I'm talking about young people, old people, sick people, dying people, the most vulnerable in our society, often with limitations on budget, income, jobs. That group needs care. They need compassion. They need support. And a caregiver program provides a path for patients to access the products that they need without going beyond their budget. And it also provides them a safe place and a group of people, a community sort of orientation, which aids in healing and in the caregiving aspect to treating people who are in dire need. It's important that we preserve medical patients' rights to grow cannabis and to work with a caregiver, and I would even add to expand to cooperatives, collectives as they were, to allow for a larger group of people to work together to solve the problems and to advance the sensibility of and the human rights really aspect of cannabis reform. Mm-hmm. Cannabis reform should center around human rights right now, and later develop into a thriving commercial enterprise. Is my view.
Thank you. I'm maybe the only person on the panel who is working with the Cannabis Reform Coalition, taking a really close look at the bill that's currently in the legislature that was drafted by the Attorney General for the state of Hawaii, which is full of criminalizing aspects. And what's really terrifying about the different provisions in this bill draft is that it would actually catch a lot of patients, growers, a lot of people who are taking care of each other within, and would criminalize a lot of their behavior. So do know that for myself and the ACLU and medical health groups who are part of this coalition, we are very clearly looking out and critiquing and recommending amendments to these bills that would make sure we don't criminalize behavior and that we are able to offer the best. But it takes a collective voice of people to bring their personal stories and say, wait a minute, are you going to trap me in this? And I'm just trying to take care of my health or take care of my auntie. So I think we need to make sure we follow up with personal stories during this whole legislative process.
So I got a rebuttal for Jason. Seeing what California has went through, what would be your advice for us farmers here on the islands and how we could be aware of what's happening in the future?
What I would say is I was through it from I moved to California about 2010 and worked at a dispensary called Harborside Health Center in Oakland. And it was a very busy shop. But I was also a cannabis activist, and so I was always doing things in my own time to be part of the movement. And I watched the culmination of the energy from the community in going into legalization and how are we going to legalize it. And we had so many factions and infighting amongst the community that when it actually came time to legalize cannabis, the people that were doing it didn't really worry about. They weren't from the community. It was a billionaire that came in and passed Prop 64 in California, and they weren't thinking about cannabis patients at all. It was all about writing a bill for commercial sale of cannabis. And what ended up happening is they passed that initiative, and the legislature then wrote accompanying bills to guide how the rollout of legalization would happen and how the permitting system would work. And we ended up with a system that is near impossible, not even for just patients, but for people that were actually running businesses 99% of everybody that I knew in the industry in 2010 was completely out of business and not cultivating and not part of the industry anymore. And like I had a friend say the other day, like we used to see each other at events and give each other high fives. Now we give each other hugs because it's like, oh, you're still here. You're still around. Like everyone else is gone. It's like we've been through a war. And the people that are still in are hanging on by a thread, and they set up a system that was designed to put us all out of business. What happened to the patients is they were completely forgotten. And there has to be a way for people to cultivate cannabis for the people in their community without facing the highest hurdles of being able to be allowed to do it by the state. Is the state needs to make the lowest barriers for entry into being able to be a cultivator for other people in your community. Because most of the patients, most of the most vulnerable, are absolutely not able to cultivate for themselves. Whether it's their physical health where they can't do it, or just their living situation where they don't have a place to cultivate cannabis. And so you have to rely on other people who do have the means to that. And those people are going to have to be able to make ends meet if they're spending their entire day cultivating cannabis for their community. So there has to be some form of legal compensation for those people. And that's essentially what we took away. We got rid of all the collectives in California, and we got rid of people's ability to legally be compensated for their work.
That seems like a lot of red tape for just a plant that we're trying to open up as an agricultural crop, right?
Yeah. You know what it also seems like too is like, are you going to change the minds of people that this is a plant and it's medicine when something like that happens in California? It just seems like you were waiting for it to be legal. Like this whole medical program they had was just like, we're just going to stay medical until it goes legal and everyone can have it and forget about the patients, forget about the caregivers. Right. So how, like I guess my question would be, how do you change the minds to show that it's a legit medicine and it's not just like a
commodity?
Yeah.
I'll take on a little of that. Well, the recent recommendation from the Health and Human Services at the federal level suggests to lower the schedule of cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. That is, in and of itself, a sign and a signal that cannabis is legitimately therapeutic and medicinal. However, I firmly believe that it doesn't belong on the schedule at all. Right. And it's simply non-scientific to have cannabis at Schedule 3. If there was a scientific basis for the scheduling of cannabis, alcohol would certainly be a Schedule 2 or Schedule 1. 100%. So right now, 100%. In any case, the good news coming out of this whole scheduling bit is the admission from the federal government that they had mistakenly and erroneously placed cannabis at Schedule 1 for nearly 100 years, or as long as this Cannabis Controlled Substance Act has been in existence. But so that was disingenuous or just factually wrong.
Right.
And now it's proven, and the FDA has even come to support cannabis as a therapeutic plant, and especially helpful for pain and other issues. But it's well documented, lots of science and research backing up the fact that cannabis 100%. Is a medicine.
Do you think that a lot of the rescheduling was like motivated by banks being able to do business with cannabis?
Yeah, I do. I believe that the approach to scheduling or lowering the schedule of cannabis is most beneficial to corporations that were seeking access to banking, but also the relief from the 280E tax burden. I will add, though, that there's only one industry that does business through the CSA, and that's not tobacco or alcohol businesses, but that's pharmaceutical industry. And so at Schedule 3, you're really setting up cannabis to be treated like a pharmaceutical substance, to be dispensed through pharmacies, and to be approved by the FDA for use. And as Jason was mentioning, state cannabis programs are already mired in red tape and overregulation. An FDA oversight of cannabis, as we've typically been using it at the state level in these medical cannabis programs, could potentially upend these programs. So it is very important that cannabis becomes descheduled. An incremental step to Schedule 3 is not something to build on, per se.
Yeah.
And going back to what Jason is saying about the rug pull that patients feel when states move to adult use, that's directly contradictory to a decent society and allowing for compassion and care to be delivered to the most vulnerable in our society.
Totally. The second question?
Yeah. Actually, this would be a good question for you, May. What will happen to Hawaii's medical patients if their caregivers are no longer allowed to grow for them?
So we actually have a real life where this is happening now with all of Care Wailua's patients. You know, there were over, after the federal raid, we saw over 1,000 patients lose access. But why this is so important? So typically when we see these these patient-centered medical farms, they create products that dispensaries don't. So specifically, they were doing RSO suppositories that, you know, I saw people's PSAs go from incredibly high to non-detectable. And if these products were available at the dispensaries, they would be so incredibly expensive that it would be completely inaccessible for most people. You know, when you look at the dispensaries for their RSO for a half a gram, it's like $70. And if you're using one of those every day, it's really impossible. So, you know, when we see these farmers, you know, they really take care of their community in a way that the dispensaries could never, ever.
Agreed. You, Uncle Daniel?
Yeah, that's actually going to ask that and follow up on that.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to say the elephant in the room. We live in an occupied state.
Yeah.
It's very clear in 1993, the United States said that they participated in the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom. So when an illegal occupying state starts to tell us how we can and cannot live our life, I think we need to think about this, right? The medical cannabis community is the largest unorganized group of farmers in Hawaii. How many patients are there now?
It's like something like 33.
Look, you guys, no joke, with 33,000 patients, we have the power as simple community people and farmers to hold this system accountable. Yeah, that's what it is. It's accountability. Under this occupational economy, under this occupational environment, none of it is set. I'm sorry, that was me. None of this is set for us to be successful.
Yep.
Yeah, the tourism industry doesn't have local people successful. Like, show me an industry in Hawaii that is being governed and run by our community, and I'll show you a successful system, but there isn't any, right? And where we are heading down the road is with institutions funding nonprofit organizations to be quiet. So, you know, I would say that the risks that we face highly outweigh the benefits that this legislation will make when we look at the people behind the legislation and those that have benefited. Yeah, let's talk about dispensaries. How many dispensaries were political payoffs? I'll say this shit because when the people that own the dispensaries were a part of the criminalization of cannabis, we know that from the beginning it was never intended for one, the patient to be successful, two, the farmer to be successful, or three, to create a sustainable closed loop system. Right? This entire system that they're trying to shove down our throat is imported energy, is imported nutrients, right? What really represents us? And so, part of me wants to be like, let's be activists and go out there and storm the Capitol. Here's the reality, guys. Here's the reality. At 30,000 patients, at $2 a month each, we have a $60,000 a month lobbying budget. That would significantly undermine what anybody else is doing in lobbying. And ultimately at the Capitol, it comes down to who's got cash, who makes plays, and who can organize people.
Are there any members in our government, local government, that are for these kind of reforms that we're talking about up here that protect patients? Are there anybody that we can talk to, or who are the ones we need to call and change their minds if not?
Here's the reality, you guys. They all work in blocks. So one person in the block will tell you, yeah. But when they go back in their meeting, they all vote together. The truth is the system is corrupt. The players, in order to play, you have to be corrupt. 100%. Even the ones we love have had to sell out their integrity along the way to hold that space. So this is why if we leave it to them, you guys, we're screwed. Yeah? We need to use these politicians like a freaking wrench. Yeah, when we're done, throw it right back into the tool case and close it up and say, when I have another leak, I'll call you. But until then, stay in that box. And that's not what's happening. They're telling us they're leading us, but they don't have the capacity. They don't have the experience, and they're not a part of this mission and what we're trying to do.
Let's not forget we're taxpayers, and they work for us.
Right, you're paying them to screw you. But the point that what's so interesting, on Wednesday, Blangiardi and Steve the Honolulu prosecutor, are having a press rally thing, and it's titled "Keep Hawaii, Hawaii." How does that make anyone else pissed off? And it's like, keep Hawaii. The Hawaii they're kind of they want to keep is the highest rates of homelessness, the criminalization of Malie, the occupation, everything. Steve was in charge of the HOPE program, which was this benevolent program that released people, and as long as they tested negative on any kind of illegal substance, they could stay out. But once they got a random call and they had to come in for a test, and if they tested positive for marijuana, they would be pulled back into prison. So he's invested in showing that what he did was righteous the whole time. So that's why he is leading the charge on maintaining this criminalization of this particular substance. And like I said before, it's about bringing in, not storming the Capitol in this case, but storming Honolulu Hale on Wednesday, right? With stories. And if you see a news person there, say, hey, I want to tell you my story. I want to tell you the real way this is impacting our community. But don't be scared. Just go up and politely talk to the media. If you see somebody in front of a camera, just go, hey, can I talk to you about something? And be sincere and polite and just give them your story. And that's how we're going to fight this. Hopefully the coalition may be doing, at the same time they're doing their rally, we may be doing a rally around looking out, questioning what they mean by keep Hawaii away, right, and all that.
If I can just add this, Kim's going to run against Scott Psyche. Yeah. And one of the things that we haven't done as a community is flex our ability to change. I say, screw it, you guys. Let's all put our effort behind Kim and take one of the hurdles out. Yeah, because somehow when we spread our energy, we're less effective than if we just identify the low-hanging fruit, right? And what that does is that sends a message to the whole system that we're serious. And when I look in this room and I look at this panel, these are some pretty serious people. But how can these serious people year after year be ineffective? And it's partly our strategy. So sorry, Kim, I want to throw that out there, but psyche is a major hurdle. Yep. And if we could change this one individual, it would actually send rips through the whole political system that these guys are organized, they have a message. And in politics, what do? They quietly pass you so you don't come back.
Thank you, Daniel. I'd like to add something here. We have a few sitting congressional members in the state who have taken on the external appearance of being pro-cannabis and in support of different legislation proposed or even passed over the years. What is very concerning and needs to be continually brought to mind is that we may be mistaken in the order of our operations here. Coco mentioned a number of times that the threat of criminality looms heavy over the cannabis community. Yet, we are promoting and advancing often commercial policies. And so to reform cannabis prohibition, it seems politicians, mainly aided by national advocacy organizations and perhaps some local donors or whatnot, but they continue to move beyond the social justice and human rights problem and jump straight to commercial aspects of cannabis, leaving this criminal overhang in our communities. That just has to stop. If they want even a successful marketplace where businesses aren't popping up and going under or never turning a profit or so on, there needs to be one market, not two or three. And currently, these policies tend to bifurcate the market at least and create this sort of unlicensed versus licensed and antagonist movement. And that just should change. The key step before any commercial promulgation is decriminalization. Simply put, the word legalization means the end of criminal treatment for cannabis activity. You can't have it both ways. You can't have legalization while still criminalizing the activity. The activity around cannabis, decriminalization, therefore, is a bedrock to build any commercial cannabis programs. And it is absolutely imperative that we take that step before we take another. And that's just my thinking on this. So I appreciate that. And then I will also add that I'm from Puna, or I live in Puna now. I'm on the Big Island. To call out some senators, Joy, she needs to do better for her constituency. You can't be putting forth these bills and not having any path for your constituents to enter commerce, if it's a commerce bill. Obviously, you need to do decrim first, but to say you're a supporter of a policy or a bill that actually negatively impacts your constituency is a key problem in today's governance, and we do need accountability from our leaders. I call to Representative Capella, who represents a huge group of a farming community on the Big Island between Puna and South Kona, where I grew up. Again, she introduced the bills last session, one of the key bills. There was nothing in there, maybe a vague assurance that there might be a path for people in that constituency in the future. But we need something solid if you're going to talk about commercial bills. And in the meantime, really think about decriminalization. It's the only way to solve this problem ultimately and have one unified marketplace.
Well, one thing that I would add from my experience, I got into the cannabis movement through a group called Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and it's a international group of students around the world doing activism in their communities. And I learned so much from. We would have these meetings where it would be kids from all over the world coming and talking about what they were doing, and it taught me a lot of things. And when I came to California and we started organizing, I actually organized in Santa Cruz, California, in response to the county announcing that they were going to ban cannabis cultivation outright because of this, that, and the other reason why we can't cultivate. And I made up little flyers, and I went to all the little shops around, and I put flyers on the counter of anybody that would let me put them there. And I literally just started renting a room in a community center and organizing. And we grew and grew into this force that could not be ignored. And I would say just what it ended up culminating in, they passed the ban. They banned cannabis cultivation, and in 21 days, we gathered 11,000 signatures and overturned their ban on cannabis cultivation.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
And so never underestimate what a small group of highly motivated activists can accomplish. You start playing their game, that's what they hate the most. You go to their meetings, you go to the state meetings, you start getting involved in the legislation, you start getting involved in people's campaigns, you get your people elected, and that is the one thing that a politician fears, is re-election. And if you can get your small group of highly motivated people to start advertising to the larger population, because most of the people agree with us.
Right.
It's the small group of highly motivated business people that don't agree with us for monetary reasons. Yes. And they meet in private, and they don't want to be loud and talked about because they know that the people don't support what they're doing. And so we have to do the opposite, is go to the people, let people know what's going on, become that channel to the populace of what's happening, and grassroots organizing, and just start playing their game and start playing it well.
Well said, man. Well said. Wow. Okay, so, yeah. I guess I'll hear that. That's pretty awesome. Yes, ma'am. Question.
We will at the end.
Okay. All righty. So next question. I think a lot of farmers out here, we're trying to make it kind of this resonates with them, but why did the value and price and the quality of cannabis fall so much in the states that legalize recreational cannabis?
Go ahead. That's what corporations do, you guys. Yeah. They come in, they drop the price, they kill out the competition, and then over time, they raise their rates and make their profit on the back end. This is just an economic strategy to wipe out all the small guys and put everybody in place.
Yes, that's accurate. These markets that tend to be centrally controlled and that don't encourage free enterprise are all about profit. Yes, that's the motivation. And what's frightening is that these centrally controlled marketplaces are, again, in contradiction to our society, a democratic society, if we're going to be that, are we? It's a good question. But in a democratic society and in this capitalist country, the free market is the invisible hand that provides the best quality products at the lowest prices. Yep. It's the most efficient way to achieve that. We demand and desire to have a free enterprise around cannabis. It's what exists, in fact, in an unlicensed marketplace. Right. And that's why the unlicensed marketplace is much more efficient at delivering quality at price.
Can I interject another perspective on this? It's many of you know the beginning of the war on drugs, and here in Hawaii, Operation Green Harvest. Yes. When they did that, it obviously took out a lot of the Pakalolo supply and everyone, and it actually shoved a lot of people into using crystal meth. Yeah. And we had huge addictions, and we still see evidence of that today. Yes. So is it wrong to hope that with legalization and decriminalization, the price of marijuana becomes lower than the price of crystal meth? I mean, I don't know what the ratio is now, but do we want it? I mean, for me, is it better to make it more accessible, easier to get, less? Do we want to, like, I guess, tell people it's okay to go back to pod instead of?
I can answer that one. I think that making it more accessible and making it more accessible on, like you said, the grassroots level. We have a lot of talented farmers out here using that avenue. I think that's the best way to utilize our talents here in the islands instead of bringing it in from the mainland or the States. That's the best way because we do have the amount here. The capabilities to take care of your aunties and your uncles and stuff like that. So,
good question: do lower prices automatically equate to lower quality? Anyone?
Certainly not. And in fact, in a patient caregiver world and in a free enterprise marketplace, there's room for free products. You know, there is, in many people, especially in the cannabis community, the authentic cannabis community, are esteemed to provide a service to people that they may know, like, or just simply out of the goodness of their heart would be willing to donate certain products to certain groups and certain peoples. Quality of cannabis is a subjective issue. You know, someone's preference could be somebody's least favorite.
Totally.
So, what quality really is in this society today is access and affordability, and these centrally controlled markets tend to create the opposite. They limit access and they limit quality.
Right.
And that's ultimately plays into the hands of the market that politicians and regulators ostensibly aim to eliminate. So it's actually backfiring, if you will.
Well, as a farmer, morally, it's a responsibility that we carry, especially stewards of the plant, right? Is like, we are medicine men. We have a responsibility that we can take care of this plant, but we need to take care of the people who need the plant that can't have access to the plant. So, like, yeah, you're right. You know, wide open. It's something that we have to do as farmers, is take care of the next person that's in need, right?
If I can add, guys, if you're buying your medicine from a drug dealer, you're getting a different medicine than if you're buying it from a farmer. And what these regulations are really about to eliminate the drug dealers. Yeah, this is a medicine. When you get it from the guy that grew it, that made all the nutrients, you're getting a part of him, a part of his love. To me, when we talk about what keeps Hawaii, yeah, is that no matter where you go, the Big Island one, different from the Maui one, it's still good. Different from a Molokai one, still good. Different from a Kauai one, still good, right? It's that diversity in plant, in people, in community that is actually our strength.
That pretty much defines quality in cannabis.
Right.
Is there a possible path where, like, one day medical insurance companies would cover and include cannabis as a prescription, where, because costs can get exorbitant on all these things, right? So where they're covering part, and maybe a patient has just like a copay or something like that exists now for prescription medicines?
So I'll take that one. The closest one that we have now is California allows people who are on workman's comp, they pay for cannabis for them at the dispensary. So that's the closest thing that we have. So I think that's great. I think that's super progressive. And that happened last year. So
I would like to add to that. This movement at the federal level to Schedule III opens the door for the FDA to approve certain products to be sold through pharmacies. And I believe that health insurance companies are very comfortable co-paying and or providing FDA-approved products to folks. So it's actually kind of a slippery slope, you know. Opening up that avenue right now could have pretty severe consequences for existing state medical programs. And at the same time, I would like that. I would like patients to have lower prices, ultimately, to pay for their medicine, whether it comes through a dispensary, a farm gate, or a pharmacy.
Right. Okay, last question. Uncle Eric, take it away.
How can we, as a community, protect our natural right to cultivate our own medicine for ourselves, our families, and our friends?
Daniel.
Anyone?
I mean, the hardest thing, you guys, is to, like, know your neighbor know what your neighbor likes, be friends with your neighbor. Yeah, it seems like it's so easy to scrap with the people closest to us. The beefs are not outside, they start in the household. So it's that personal integrity reflection upon each of our members here, and then figuring out how to create capacity to give time to this. This is a battle. This battle requires people, requires time. It's good, show up at the Capitol on opening day, but for the 3 months after, every single day, we need to have presence. How does this community do this? I don't know. Once again, standing next to motivated, very smart people that have access to networks and relationships and resources. How do we use that, but not be afraid that it will be used against us? And I think this really, I think we have all the ingredients. What we really don't have is the leadership to bake the cake. So let's go find ourselves a good leader, you guys. Like in the old days, the Hawaiian leader that was kind of okay, yeah? He had one eye, yeah, because he would learn. Yeah, and then the holding leaders accountable was a little bit easier, yeah? You'd be like, that rock, that was the leader, yeah, he wasn't so good. That rock over there, yeah, but that one, he good. After we took out his one eye and he see better. Today, how do we do that? Because we are in a leadership crisis. And medical cannabis is one of the casualties of having poor leaders, but it is in a list of other things that we are facing as a community, which ties into leadership. So I hope everyone here votes intelligently and hopefully wants to run for office.
Daniel's been right on a few things, and I appreciate you, Daniel. The point that he really nailed was the fact that patients need a lobbying organization working full time. If a patients union were to arrive, or just a consumer-centric union were to arrive and apply pressure, that would be very, very helpful. I think everybody in here could contribute something to a cause. We do need great leadership involved in that.
Yep.
I personally do admire Uncle James Anthony as one of our distinguished leaders on this subject and in this state. And I fully support the Cannabis Hui and their organization and recognize that it needs more support, leadership, and funding, mainly funding. And that's really it. We need to put some money where our mouths are, so to speak, and really apply that same equal pressure or greater pressure than the lobbying organizations that are working towards adult use commercialization. Surely a tax and regulate model that will stifle the industry, bifurcate the market, cause lots of pain on both sides, and. We need to unify. We need the state to become our ally and an assistance to the Hawaii generally, and to Hawaii's cannabis. The business will have no more of the criminalization of cannabis.
Totally.
Going back to that, that's paramount. Decriminalize cannabis activity. Treat any issue related to it as a civil or commerce-related problem. And we may have something to work with there. Oh, and I will add this. The Attorney General, she should just be busy protecting Hawaii's regional agriculture. That's it. She should be looking out for Hawaii on national level.
Yes.
Protecting Hawaii as a regional brand, just like we do Kona Coffee,
100%.
as an example. So that would keep her busy, and I think it would be good work.
So I want to share that you actually have some amazing advocates, lobbyists in the ACLU, Carrie Ann Shirota, as well as Nikos Leveros from the Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction program. That used to be the Drug Policy Forum, and it was a lot funded by Pamela Lichty. She's a philanthropist who worked really, who did a lot of investment and lobbying for the dispensary model, but also for just policy reform and decriminalization. So there is funding. People are taking this message to the lawmakers, and there is some effort being put. I'm sorry that they're not reaching out to the consumers and the patients and the caregivers so that you guys know you have them as your lead advocates and lobbyists, at least amongst lawmakers. But they're working really, really hard.
I appreciate that, Kim. And I will say thank you to Nikos Leverance. I see his work in national press often, and he speaks to the need for Kanaka representation in any commercial marketplace for cannabis. He speaks to the need to reevaluate limited licensing, overtaxation, general overregulation. And so Nikos is an ally, as I consider it. And we appreciate everything he's doing to further the cause for Kanaka and for Hawaii at large. I hope he hears that. Thanks, Nikos.
And I just, sorry.
No.
Oh, gosh. I just wanted to also say that we have a summary. So we have them available. We have a summary of the AG's bill, and we also have a summary of some of the really good patient protection bills that are happening. So we have a decriminalization bill that has been put up. We have a bill that will protect basically collectives. We have 2 collective bills. So if you want to, I'll have those available after, so you can just plug those in for testimony, and just also some places to get more information.
Awesome. Yeah, we need that. We need, like myself, there's a lot of words and bills that's been written up, and for me, like, I rarely have the time to even look at something like that, let alone comprehend all that verbatim that's been jumbled up in front of me. So, yeah, thank you, sister, for kind of like giving us cheat sheets and letting us, understand a little bit better.
The people voting on it don't have time to read it most times.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
We're about 10 minutes till we're out, so I want to give everybody a chance to, like, any last thoughts, and then open it up for questions. Then we had somebody ask me if they have a question, or that they said they don't have a question. So, any final thoughts from the panel?
The one thing I would say is you need to have unity in the community.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Put the egos aside. Especially in cannabis, there's just so many characters. And that's a beautiful thing about our community. I love it. But when we get in a room together, and we need to understand that we're all part of one force together, and if you're going to write some legislation, you're not going to get everything you want. There's going to be other people in the room that have things that they want, and you always have to do your best to meet in the middle and put your egos aside and realize that when you're divided, you're conquerable. And when you're united, you can do anything.
Awesome.
So.
Hell yeah, guys. Oh yeah. And like California, you're speaking about things that are that's happening already in your state, and you can kind of see it happening in our state. So it's like a glimpse into the future, and like a fair warning of like, hey, beware of what this is going to happen. This is what we need to do to combat what's about to happen.
I would just say this, you guys. Live like COVID never ended. Like we're in a continual world crisis. That fuel prices are going to continue to skyrocket. That medicine is going to be more inaccessible. That freaking plumbing fixtures at Lowe's are not going to be accessible because there is a global production challenge. And if we keep that in mind and work like we're in that crisis, we're going to figure shit out. But if we keep thinking that there's Band-Aids on supply, we can just call up Costco and no problem, here we go, and someone else is going to bail us out and there's going to be some type of subsidy, we're going to continue to be led down the path to slaughter. Yeah, there really is a crisis that we're experiencing every single day that we freaking normalize. How do we get out of that? Sometimes you get mad at the guy that woke you up, but I hope that you do something positive when you're awake.
I wanted to share one last final thought.
Yes, ma'am.
So one of the things that the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce is trying to put out in front on this issue is that when they start issuing commercial licenses to grow non-medical cannabis, that they give those first permits to grow to farmers who are actually growing food for local consumption. Mm-hmm. So whether it's a farmer who allocates 1/9 of their property to grow commercial cannabis, that the proceeds that they make from that actually goes to subsidize them feeding their community food.
Yes.
Because what I don't want to see happening is these mainland people coming in and buying farmland and then, growing and then, taking all the resources, the water, the land, the labor away from feeding the people of Hawaii. So actually go in early and have a discussion with people who are issuing these grow permits.
Solid. That's our job.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions from the panel, the people sitting over here? Yes, ma'am, you had your hand up a long time, so we see you back there.
Greetings, everyone, all the esteemed panelists. I want to thank you for your presentation today. Although I had to emergency walk out of here a couple of times, your message was well delivered and very insightful. I do want to address a question that was asked by one of the panelists. How can such powerful people be so ineffective and effective change in the industry? Speaking about yourselves in your capacity as activists in the cannabis industry. So I thought, personally, as a cannabis activist and advocate, I would suggest that in order for that to work, that your organization and you as an individual have to recognize that the cannabis industry laws and regulations are rooted in a system, and structure of racism. And I'm giving you, if you think about the history of cannabis legalization here, the first institution that was managing it was, I think, the police or the DEA, and then it got switched to the health department. Both these institutions, neither any of the people in there have any more knowledge of the plant, how the plant works, and the nature of the history of the plant, and therefore should not be making regulations and legislations regarding the plants. So until and unless all cannabis activists in Hawaii and organizations come together on the issue of really basically reparatory and restorative justice for the people of Hawaii, whose land that they've conquered, for the people that they've criminalized during green harvest, i.e., I'm an example right here in the flesh for you. And what I'm saying here, our voices count, but the doorkeepers have kept us out for a long time. And this is the very first opportunity, and I'd like to thank the 7th Annual Hawaii Cannabis Expo sponsors and organizers for opening the door for the Ganja War veterans like myself and people in my family to come and tell our story in this cannabis industry, not just his story. Because right now, as we know it, cannabis is the largest growing business in the United States. It provides more jobs than any other industry. But when you look at it, who owns that industry? 81% owned by white males who probably have inherited the wealth to enter that business from their fathers, who were lawyers and prosecutors and legislators during the war on drugs. So I'm here to say, please, I want this community to understand that, when the black woman speaks, everybody says she's angry. This is not anger. This is total passion and love coming straight from the heart and pleading with all of you who I've seen walking around. I only know one person there, and that's Sister May. But I'm pleased to meet y'all, and I've been here. I returned to Hawaii in 2018 and have been reaching out to the cannabis activist community, and this is the first time I've had a chance to hui with so many, and I'm just so excited. I commend you, and continue doing what you're doing. And do join us, and I'll be here. I'm going to do a little plug for my
Awesome
presentation, which is coming up at 1 o'clock. the topic is reparatory and restorative justice, because until there are criminal justice reforms, you cannot have a just cannabis industry here in Hawaii.
Absolutely.
And the AG and all the legislators, and they come in here at 3 o'clock, hope you all going to go put some fire out and let them know that, yes, we do elect you. I'm a registered voter, by the way. Okay, and I always encourage people in my community to register to vote and to be active in their community on a local level. We may not be seen, but we hear.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, ma'am. I think we got time for one more super fast question. So, my man over here in the front.
Aloha, I just wanted to say thank you, Mahalo, for putting this panel together, because this is the only panel that represents us, the farmers, the patients, the caregivers. And all the other panels and discussions that are being put together are political, and therefore talking about money. Money over medicine. Cannabis is medicine first and foremost, and I don't work with anybody that sees money first. It's medicine, okay? And just so all of you know, they're trying to take away caregivers. There's a sunset deadline taking away caregivers. People, the farmers that grow for the patients who cannot grow for themselves. And especially in Oahu, where there's no privacy or land to do it, it's so hard. All right, so we need to let them know that caregivers need to stay in perpetuity, forever. And we need to expand the number of patients one caregiver can care for. Okay, having one caregiver care for only one patient is like having one chef, one private chef for only one person and nobody else. That is ridiculous. The other thing I just want to add too is that they're trying to put a limit on the number of patients or plants or cards or whatever on the property. I understand 5 cards or 5 patients in residential zone areas. I get that, that's reasonable. But we need to have an exemption to allow for more farming, more cannabis cultivation on ag zone property. So please, when you get a chance to talk to your representatives or senators, let them know. Let us farm. Right? This is the only way we keep Hawaii. This is the only way we keep country. Otherwise, it's all going to be developed. Okay? So support your local farmer. When you buy from a dispensary, that goes to a corporation who pays a barely livable wage to its employees, and the profit goes to the mainland, because that's who owns our dispensaries.
100%, guys. Keep the money in Hawaii. I love you guys. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you all for coming to this panel. We're Pao. Thank you to May, Daniel, Jason,
Rusty,
and
Kim.
Kim. Yeah, we'll see you guys out there on the expo floor.
Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it so much.